300 men held a mountain pass against an army of thousands, for days, against odds that should have ended the fight in an afternoon. Nobody talks about what those men ate the morning before that fight. They should, because it wasn't complicated, it wasn't expensive, and half of it would make a modern gym bro gag before he even finished tasting it. Number 1. Barley. Prepared as maza, a dense barley cake that formed the actual staple grain of the Spartan diet and their military rations. This wasn't a side dish somebody added for texture. This was the base of nearly every meal a Spartan soldier ate, day after day, for his entire life as a warrior, from childhood training in the Agoj straight through decades of active combat service. Barley is a slow-digesting complex carbohydrate, which means it refills muscle glycogen, the stored fuel your muscles actually burn through during physical effort, without the sugar spike and crash you get from refined grains. A civilization that trained for combat as a full-time occupation built its entire caloric foundation around this one grain, and that wasn't an accident or a lack of imagination. It was thousands of men getting tested by consequence every single day, and barley kept winning that test decade after decade. It wasn't glamorous in 700 BC. It isn't glamorous now. It still works exactly the same way it did then, and it still costs almost nothing at any grocery store. Number 2. Figs. Documented as part of Spartan rations and eaten regularly alongside the barley cake, often as part of the fixed monthly allotments given to soldiers serving away from home. Figs are dense in natural sugars and potassium, which makes them a legitimate fast-acting energy source. Functionally, the ancient equivalent of what modern athletes now pay premium prices for in a branded energy gel packaged specifically to look more sophisticated than dried fruit. Potassium also plays a direct role in proper muscle contraction and in preventing cramping under sustained physical load, which matters considerably more to a man marching in bronze armor for 6 hours than it does to a man on a treadmill for 30 minutes. A Spartan soldier eating dried figs before formation wasn't doing anything trendy or forward-thinking. He was doing exactly what a smart modern athlete does today. Several thousand years before electrolytes became a word printed on a bottle specifically to justify tripling its price. Number 3. Goat or sheep cheese. This was a standard documented contribution to the syssitia, the communal mess halls where every Spartan man was required to eat together daily, specifically so no one could hide behind private luxury or quietly skip his obligation to the group. The cheese delivered concentrated protein and fat in a food that didn't spoil quickly, which mattered enormously when you're feeding an army with no refrigeration and absolutely no patience for anything that went bad in the field halfway through a campaign. Protein for muscle tissue repair after training that most modern men would call excessive. Fat for sustained, slow-burning energy across a full day of drilling. Calcium for bone density under the kind of repeated physical stress these men absorbed every single day of their adult lives, often starting as young as 7 years old. Simple food, made with almost no processing, doing serious biological work quietly in the background. That combination is rarer today than it was then. And that alone should tell you something about what changed in the last few thousand years. Here's what actually ties this entire list together, and it's the part most people miss when they romanticize Sparta into some kind of ancient wellness brand with a hashtag attached. This wasn't a performance diet engineered by a nutritionist with a client roster and a supplement line to sell. It was a survival diet shaped entirely by brutal necessity, and it happened to align almost perfectly with what modern sports science now understands about real athletic nutrition. Slow digesting carbohydrates for sustained output, dense natural sugars for immediate fuel, and animal protein and fat for genuine tissue repair. They didn't have a lab, a research grant, or a peer review process. They had thousands of men training, marching, and fighting daily for their entire adult lives, and any food that didn't hold up under that pressure got eliminated by direct, immediate consequence, not by a study published years later. That is a harsher, more honest filter than anything a modern supplement company has ever run its product through. And it's the reason this list has survived intact for over 2,000 years, while most trending diets don't survive 2 years. Number 4. Olives and olive oil. Both were core staples of the broader Greek and Spartan diet, used constantly in cooking and eaten directly as food at nearly every meal. Olive oil is dense in monounsaturated fat, and monounsaturated fat directly supports healthy cholesterol balance in the body. And cholesterol, whether the modern wellness industry wants to admit it plainly or not, is the actual base material your body converts into testosterone. Whole olives on their own also carry a meaningful, concentrated dose of healthy fat with almost zero preparation effort required. which mattered to men who had drilling to get to and no time to waste on elaborate meal prep. This is one of the only items on this entire list that transfers into a modern kitchen with no adjustment whatsoever. Add real olive oil to real food. That's not a biohack with a trademark name attached to it. That's just how they actually lived, out of pure necessity, long before it needed a marketing campaign or a podcast sponsorship to sound impressive. Remember the potassium from the figs in number 2, working directly with muscle contraction under load during long marches. What's coming up next works alongside that same mechanism, except this one is going to make some of you visibly uncomfortable just hearing the description out loud. And that's exactly why it's on this list. Number 5. Pork. Documented as part of both Spartan military rations and Sisisha contributions, pork gave these men a dense, practical source of protein and fat that required none of the elaborate preparation modern diet culture insists on today with its marinades and its 45-minute prep videos. Straightforward amino acids for direct muscle repair after brutal daily training. B vitamins for basic energy metabolism that kept them functioning through long campaigns. Enough fat density that even a modest portion carried real caloric weight for men who were marching, drilling, and fighting constantly and simply could not afford to be underfed heading into a battle. No seasoning philosophy attached to it. No macro tracking app involved, obviously. Just meat, fire, and men who needed to physically be stronger again by the following morning. Whether they felt like it or not, because the enemy wasn't going to wait for them to feel ready. Everything covered so far, a modern nutritionist would approve of almost without hesitation. Number 6 is the one they actually wrote entire passages of ancient history about, and it wasn't because it tasted good to outsiders. It was the exact opposite, and that's precisely what makes it interesting. Number 6. Meles Zomos, the black broth. This is the single dish Sparta became genuinely famous for across the entire ancient Greek world. Documented specifically as a stew made from pork, pig's blood, vinegar, and salt, simmered together into a thick, dark, almost black mixture that gave the dish its name. Ancient writers recorded visitors from other city-states trying a bowl out of pure curiosity and flatly refusing a second serving, sometimes on the spot. Spartans, by contrast, ate it constantly and without complaint, because to them it wasn't a delicacy or a novelty. It was simply Tuesday, and Wednesday, and every other day of the week. There's a real nutritional mechanism sitting directly underneath that reputation, and it's more impressive than the shock value alone suggests. Blood is one of the most concentrated natural sources of usable iron and protein available in any traditional diet anywhere in the ancient world, well beyond what a comparable portion of standard muscle meat provides on its own. And iron is directly required for oxygen transport to working muscle tissue during any kind of sustained physical exertion, which describes essentially every day of a Spartan soldier's life. The vinegar in the recipe wasn't there for flavor either. It prevented the blood from clotting during preparation and functioned as a basic preservation method in a world with no refrigeration whatsoever, keeping the dish usable across communal meals serving hundreds of men at once. This wasn't a delicacy invented to impress anyone visiting from Athens. It was a battlefield-grade recovery meal that happened to be disguised as an unappetizing stew nobody outside Sparta wanted to admit actually made complete biological sense. The modern fitness industry sells you an iron supplement in a plastic capsule with a 30-day supply and a subscription option because a genuine bowl of blood soup doesn't photograph well next to a protein powder tub with a skull printed on the label. Spartans didn't need the capsule, the label, or the marketing budget behind either one. They had the bowl 3 times a week, if not daily, and the bowl simply worked. Number 7. Watered wine. Documented as the standard communal drink at Spartan Sisisha meals, always diluted with water at a fixed ratio, never consumed the way modern men treat alcohol socially or recreationally on a weekend. This isn't sitting on the list as a performance recommendation, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend alcohol has any legitimate muscle-building mechanism just to pad this list out with something that sounds interesting to include. It's here because it completes the historical picture accurately, and because even a culture built entirely around physical dominance and daily combat readiness understood clearly that undiluted excess had no place in a warrior's discipline. Spartans reportedly used the sight of a drunk helot as a teaching tool to show young men exactly what they were never allowed to become. If you're seriously building strength today, that underlying lesson still matters considerably more than the drink itself ever did, and it's arguably the most overlooked piece of discipline on this entire list. Number 8. Lentils. Documented as a major staple in the Spartan diet, frequently prepared in soups and stews, often combined directly with the barley from number 1 to form a more complete protein profile than either food provided on its own. Lentils are dense in plant-based protein and slow-digesting fiber, which means sustained energy release without the crash. plus a genuine contribution to daily protein intake in a diet that couldn't always guarantee meat, cheap, filling, and boring to look at, which is exactly why it survived as a daily staple instead of a seasonal luxury. A man eating lentils and barley together wasn't settling for less. He was covering his protein bases the same way modern athletes now pay extra for a complete amino acid powder. Number 9. Game meat. Venison and wild boar specifically, both documented as regular parts of the Spartan diet through hunting, which was not treated as recreation but as a practical food source. This wasn't ceremonial meat reserved for feasts. Wild game gave these men a leaner protein source than domesticated pork, with a different fat profile that still delivered the amino acids required for muscle repair after brutal daily training. Hunting also kept them moving under real physical stress, even on days they weren't drilling in formation. Tracking, stalking, and carrying a kill back was its own form of conditioning nobody had to program into a schedule. Free protein, free training, built into the same afternoon. If you want to build a realistic modern version of this starting tomorrow morning, here's how it actually breaks down in practical terms. Barley or plain oats as your primary carbohydrate base, instead of the refined cereal most men default to purely out of convenience and habit. Real olive oil added directly onto your food, instead of the seed oil quietly hiding in almost everything pre-made sitting in your kitchen right now. A small handful of dried figs before training, for genuine fast-digesting energy, instead of a manufactured gel with a marketing budget attached to justify its price tag. Real protein from meat, eggs, or cheese, instead of another processed bar wrapped in packaging designed to look more impressive than the actual product inside it. You don't need the black broth specifically, blood and all, to apply the underlying principle behind it. You need enough real iron and enough real protein consistently in your actual daily diet, and most modern men are quietly short on both while eating food that photographs beautifully for a meal prep post online and does almost nothing functional for their body underneath the photo filter. Sparta didn't build the most physically dominant men of the ancient world with supplements, meal plans, or anything currently being sold to you with a testimonial and a limited time discount code attached to the checkout page. They built those men with grain, fat, animal protein, and a level of daily discipline that never once had an off switch built into it, from childhood until the day they either won or died. That is the actual formula, and it has not fundamentally changed in over 2,000 years. Modern culture just made an equivalent version of it considerably more expensive, more complicated, and noticeably less effective in the process. If you want to see exactly what happens when a modern man tries eating this way, blood soup included, for 30 consecutive days with no shortcuts and no cheat meals, that's the next video, and I can already tell you it will not be a comfortable watch for anyone involved. Stop searching for the modern shortcut. The ancient version was already the shortcut, and it was sitting there the entire time, waiting for someone to stop overcomplicating it. Eat like you've got a battle waiting for you tomorrow morning, because in this life, in some form, you basically already do.